The late autumn afternoon in San Diego was bathed in golden light. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Cathedral, casting colors onto the rows of guests, business tycoons, politicians, celebrities, and some of the most powerful figures in the city. The soft chords of the organ began to play, signaling the bride's entrance. Everyone rose, turning toward the grand oak doors as they opened slowly. And then she appeared. Sabrina Duval, radiant in a crystal-embroidered gown. Each of her steps was the embodiment of poise and elegance. But the moment her eyes reached the end of the aisle, her entire body froze. There, waiting patiently, sat Nathan Caldwell. He was in his custom-designed wheelchair, silver-toned with intricate detail, a symbol of refinement and a cruel reminder of the accident that had forever changed his life. His gaze was soft, full of quiet hope. Sabrina's eyes locked onto the man waiting at the altar, the wheelchair, the hope in his gaze, the weight of the future. Her breath caught, her steps faltered. Then, under the gaze of hundreds, she turned and ran. Her wedding dress fluttered behind her like torn sails in a storm. Whispers erupted like waves through the pews. Cameras began flashing. Someone murmured, She just ran away?" Nathan didn't move. His hands clenched the arms of his chair. From the right side of the aisle, Elena Torres, a young server in a cream-colored uniform, stood frozen in shock. Nathan turned, his eyes locking with hers. And then, he reached out his hand. "Elena, would you marry me?" No one dared breathe. "Yes," Elena whispered. That was where it all began. From the top floor of his cliffside mansion overlooking the Pacific, Nathan Caldwell sat in silence, watching the sunset melt into the ocean. The last light of day bathed the floor-to-ceiling windows in gold, casting his reflection against the glass, himself in a sleek titanium wheelchair, a custom design he could never look at without remembering the accident 5 years ago. That day, his private helicopter crashed en route from San Francisco. He survived, but he would never walk again. At 39, Nathan was the CEO of Caldwell Innovations, a tech empire at the forefront of artificial intelligence. Governments and Fortune 500 companies ran on the systems he'd built. Forbes had once called him the golden mind of the 21st century. But inside the $30 million zero-cents mansion perched above the sea, silence often weighed heavier than the stone walls. Every room was architecturally flawless. Every corner oozed class. But no one stayed. No friends, no family, no love. Nathan wasn't afraid of the wheelchair. He had long made peace with that. What pained him far more was invisibility. The feeling of being seen not as a man, but as a narrative, a success story, a source of inspiration. Not a human being. The parties, the praise, the press. It all became armor for a soul too tired to feel. There was only one thing that still reminded him he was real: the Caldwell Foundation for Children with Disabilities. He didn't start it for PR. He started it because he understood. Because he had once been a child who dreamed of walking. Tonight was the Foundation's annual gala. Though the passion had faded, he still went through the motions. He wore the Navy custom suit, adjusted his Patek Philippe watch, and told himself, just one more night, then back to silence. Inside the grand ballroom of the Carlton Hotel in downtown San Diego, crystal chandeliers glittered above flowing gowns, sparkling champagne flutes, and the soft hum of a live jazz quartet. The annual Caldwell Foundation Gala was in full swing, hosting over 200 guests from the city's highest social circles. Nathan arrived on time, composed in a deep navy suit, his hair neatly combed, expression unreadable. He offered polite smiles, firm handshakes, brief nods, yet his eyes remained distant, as if he were merely passing through this world, not part of it. And then, she arrived. Sabrina Duval stepped through the doors like the room had been waiting for her. Tall, elegant, with golden curls framing her face, crimson lips, and eyes that could command attention without a word. She wore a backless silk gown in crimson, every curve artfully revealed. She didn't try to shine, she simply did. Nathan, who had grown immune to surface beauty, found himself looking, really looking, for the first time in years. She approached with a European ambassador on her arm, but when her eyes met Nathan's, something shifted, something that didn't belong to the shallow world of formalities. "Mr. Caldwell," she smiled, her voice laced with a soft French lilt. "Thank you for such a meaningful evening. I admire what you're doing for the children. Please call me Nathan. And thank you, Sabrina." Their first exchange lasted minutes, but something in those moments pulled them closer. Sabrina didn't speak only of fashion or fame. She spoke of art, of literature, of life's contradictions. And for the first time in years, Nathan felt something he thought had long died inside him: interest. After that night, they began seeing each other often. Mornings at cafes in La Jolla, slow walks through modern art galleries, long conversations that never seemed forced. Slowly, the media took notice. The press dubbed them Romance of the Year, the tech mogul and the international beauty. 6 months later, on a private rooftop dinner overlooking the ocean, fireworks lit up the sky. Nathan reached into his pocket and produced a velvet box. "Sabrina, will you marry me?" She smiled. "Picture perfect." Yes, just a few steps away, Elena Torres, the young housekeeper who had always remained quietly in the background, cleared the table in silence. She said nothing. Her face was unreadable, but deep inside, something had quietly shattered. Elena Torres never imagined her life would lead her to the Caldwell estate, a palace of marble and glass she used to only dream about from a dusty border town. She'd been recommended by Marta, the longtime housekeeper, and from her very first day she knew this house was different. Grand, yes, but cold. During the 6 months that Sabrina Duval reigned over the mansion like a goddess, Elena quietly observed, from pouring tea, arranging flowers, to folding gowns, and she saw things others missed. Sabrina was nothing like the graceful, soft-spoken woman she presented to Nathan. When he wasn't around, she turned sharp, commanding, and cruel. Elena once witnessed her berate a staff member for placing the wrong color roses. "You're not paid to think, just do what you're told," Sabrina snapped, her voice like ice. Elena said nothing, though unease coiled inside her. One afternoon, while organizing Sabrina's wardrobe, the phone rang. Sabrina was out with her bridal party for a dress fitting. Out of habit, Elena picked up. "I'm sorry, Miss Duval isn't available right now. Tell her Carlos called. And make sure she doesn't forget tomorrow's arrangement," a man's voice replied, laced with mockery and something darker. Elena froze. After hanging up, something compelled her to check a drawer. Inside a hidden lining, she found a sealed envelope. Inside, photographs of Sabrina in intimate moments with a man, clearly not Nathan. Alongside them, a handwritten note. "You know what happens if you mess this up. The wedding has to happen. We need that money." Elena's hands trembled. It was undeniable now. Sabrina wasn't in love with Nathan. She was acting. A performance designed to cash in on the wedding. And Elena was the only one who knew. That evening, as the mansion settled into silence, Elena Torres stood frozen outside Nathan's study door. Her heart pounded so loud it nearly drowned out her breath, but she knew she couldn't stay quiet. She knocked gently. "Come in," Nathan's voice replied from inside. She stepped in, hands clenched, voice trembling. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to tell you something. About Miss Duval." Nathan looked up from his laptop, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "Go on." Elena told him everything, from the strange phone call, the hidden photos, to the handwritten note outlining Sabrina's plan. Each word felt like walking through fire, but her gaze never wavered. When she finished, silence filled the room. Nathan leaned back in his chair, fingers laced. "Do you have proof?" he asked quietly. "No, sir, just what I saw and heard." Nathan let out a dry laugh, empty and cold. "And you expect me to cancel my wedding because of a maid's word?" Elena took a step back, cheeks burning. "I expect nothing. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. Or maybe "You have feelings for me?" Nathan said, voice cutting. "I'm not blind, Elena. I see the way you look at me. Is this jealousy?" The words hit like a blade. Elena swallowed hard. "It's not because I want something. It's because I believe you deserve someone who truly loves you. Thank you for your concern, but stay in your place." She lowered her head and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time, she felt truly small. As the door closed behind Elena, Nathan remained still. No more words, no accusations, just a hollow silence echoing through a room too large. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, trying to suppress the thudding in his chest. But Elena's face lingered, her eyes burning with sincerity, unafraid, asking for nothing. She hadn't pleaded, she hadn't begged, she had simply told the truth and accepted being misunderstood. Why did that disturb him more than it should? Nathan had heard countless flattering words, seen people drawn to his wealth, his name, his power. He prided himself on reading people well. But what if he was wrong? What if Sabrina didn't love him? What if everything Elena said was true? He opened the drawer and took out the ring box. The engagement ring still glimmered under the desk lamp. Beautiful, expensive, and empty. He hated this feeling, not being able to trust his own judgment. That night, he didn't sleep, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, where every crack in the plaster looked like another fracture in his trust. St. Joseph's Cathedral looked like something from a dream. White silk draped every archway, Dutch imported orchids lined the pews, and crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light. The media arrived early. This was the wedding of the century, the union of Nathan Caldwell and Sabrina Duvall. Nathan sat at the altar, dressed in a custom-tailored Italian tuxedo. His silver-trimmed wheelchair, specially designed for the event, gleamed under the lights. His calm smile was a mask carved from stone. Elena Torres stood quietly in the far corner, dressed in the formal staff uniform. Her heart felt heavy. Nathan had chosen to go forward. She couldn't do anything more. The organ began to play, the traditional bridal march. Guests rose, eyes fixed on the grand wooden doors. But no one answered. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10. Nathan remained composed, but his knuckles turned white on the wheelchair's arms. His mother, Victoria, leaned in, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We could delay things," she whispered. Nathan shook his head. "We wait." At the 20-minute mark, a staff member approached quickly, handing Nathan an ivory envelope. He opened it. Inside was a single slip of paper, handwritten. "I can't marry someone I love less than his money. Goodbye. S." Nathan said nothing. No outburst, no words, but his eyes shifted. Shock, then pain, then emptiness. In the back corner, Elena covered her mouth, tears streaming. Not from vindication, but from heartbreak. She had hoped, desperately, that she was wrong. The air inside the cathedral froze after Nathan read the final line of Sabrina's letter. No one spoke. No one moved. Silence echoed through the grandeur. Then, something no one could have foreseen happened. Nathan lifted his head. His eyes scanned the crowd and settled on a quiet corner, where Elena Torres stood, her hands clenched around a folded silk cloth. Without a word, he turned his wheelchair and rolled toward her. All heads turned. The wheels against the marble floor echoed like a declaration. He stopped in front of her. Elena's eyes widened, her heartbeat thundered. Elena looked at him, breathless. Her world spun. Then, almost inaudibly, "Yes." And with that word, everything changed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers turned into stunned murmurs. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. Nathan gave a slight nod, his gaze never leaving hers. There were no fireworks, no diamond ring, no silk gown. But for the first time in years, he had something real. Someone who chose to walk toward him when everyone else had turned away. They married in the shock of a watching world. No extravagant gown, no diamond ring, no cascade of flowers, only two eyes meeting amid betrayal and fragile trust. This marriage didn't begin with love. It began with dignity. The dignity of a man publicly abandoned, and the quiet compassion of a woman who saw the truth and chose to stand beside him. Everyone assumed it wouldn't last, that it was a performance, a patch, a headline, but they were wrong. Elena didn't change after the wedding. She remained as she was, simple, quiet, consistent. She asked for nothing, not his money, not his power, not even his attention. What she cared for was the man behind all the grandeur. Every morning she brought him coffee, black, no sugar, with just a dash of cinnamon, exactly how he liked it. She placed fresh flowers in his study, rearranged his books by color and theme. On nights he worked late, she sat nearby, reading silently, never interrupting, always present. And in those tiny, unnoticed gestures, something within Nathan shifted. It wasn't pity, it wasn't duty. It was gentleness. One rainy evening, with thunder echoing beyond the glass walls, he asked softly, "Why did you say yes to marrying me that day?" She smiled. "Because once I overheard someone mocking me, calling me the maid who wore a crown. But you stood in front of them and said, 'She's the only one in this house who's genuine.' From that moment, I couldn't stop thinking about you." That night, something quietly changed. They began playing piano together, she teaching him to move his weaker left hand with simple chords. They shared breakfasts in the garden, wandered through art museums, selected books on slow Sunday afternoons. No one called it love, but the warmth seeped in like morning sun after a long winter. A year passed. The agreement was never mentioned again. The invisible walls faded, replaced by longer glances, softer touches, and silences that no longer felt awkward. They were no longer strangers bound by circumstance. They were becoming a family. Spring returned with gentle sunlight and a breeze drifting in from the ocean. The garden behind the Caldwell estate was dressed in white ribbons, roses, and glass lanterns suspended in the air. No paparazzi, no scandal. A moment where two souls stood before each other with no masks, no walls, only truth. Nathan Caldwell and Elena Torres were about to exchange something rare. Not vows for a marriage born of circumstance, but vows born of love. Elena wore a simple white dress, no veil, no lace, just grace. Nathan sat in his familiar wheelchair, holding a bouquet of lavender, her favorite. His gaze was warm, steady, so different from the guarded man he'd once been. The ceremony was quiet, intimate. When it was Nathan's turn to speak, he looked into Elena's eyes, voice low and thick with emotion. "1 year ago, you walked toward me when the world turned away. You didn't see the chair, you saw me." Silence. Elena's eyes welled with tears, her lips trembling into a soft smile. "And she whispered, voice shaking, "I fell in love when you thought no one was watching." The garden held its breath. There were no fireworks, no grandeur, just a moment where two souls stood before each other with no masks, no walls. Nathan extended his hand. Elena took it. They kissed, not for honor, not for show, but for love. Applause followed, no cheers, no chaos, only the tender celebration of those who had witnessed the unlikely birth of something real. From deep within, Nathan knew, this time, no one was walking away. And Elena knew, she was no longer invisible, not a maid, not a placeholder, but a woman chosen by the heart. 3 years after their vow renewal, the Caldwell Garden wasn't just a place of memory. It echoed with the laughter of a child. Nathan and Elena now had a complete family. Their little boy had his mother's bright eyes and his father's crooked smile. The day he was born, Nathan held Elena's hand and whispered, "You've given me a second life." Leo became the center of their universe. Elena sang lullabies at the piano. Nathan told bedtime stories in his deep, calming voice. Sleepless nights filled with cries turned into memories they never wanted to forget. But the real miracle came on an ordinary afternoon. The breeze rustled the trees. Leo, just 14 months old, stood wobbly on the grass, arms outstretched for balance. Elena knelt nearby, smiling. "That's it, Leo. One more step." One step. Then another. Nathan, seated a few feet away, watched intently, and then something stirred. A heat, a strength he hadn't felt in years, deep in his legs. He gripped the armrests, and then, without warning, he stood, slowly, shakily, but firmly. Elena turned just in time to see him standing tall, sunlight catching the tears in his eyes. "Nathan, I think if he can take his first steps, maybe I can too." His eyes stayed on Leo, but Elena knew. Those words were for her. Leo squealed with joy, clapping his tiny hands. It wasn't magic. It was love, time, trust, the quiet strength of a woman who believed in the impossible. And it was the greatest gift of all, for two broken hearts that found each other and learned to stand again.